You shall have no trouble that is not also my trouble, nor any joy that is not also my own. I say this from my heart, and there are 1,000 others with us here tonight who in their hearts say the same thing. If 1,000 say this to you tonight, how many more will say it to you in the years to come? Remember that help is always at hand. You have friends in the higher worlds who will come whenever you call, and you have friends in this world that will do the same. From the highest tree call out to the truth of your spirit, and know that always, always friends will come. Then, amidst a rousing chorus of agreement, the circle disbanded, and I resumed my place beside Hiawatha on the top of the mound. If any man or any nation, I continued, shall desire peace within his heart, let that man or let that nation trace the great white roots of peace to their single source, in the being of the one great eternal Spirit whose presence lives within each beating heart. Let them take shelter beneath the long leaves of the flowering tree of peace. Let them live their lives in the shelter of these truths. For those who abide by these words and principles will be upheld and cared for. Their families will prosper and become a blessing to their tribes, to the four-footed, to the winged, and to the people of every nation they encounter. Let it be known around your council fires that leadership is necessary to tribal undertakings, for it draws together the power and the unity of the nation. But henceforth let your leadership be determined with the cycles of the seasons. Let the turnover among your chiefs and principals be as the turnover of fall leaves into the new leaves of spring. Since it is the custom of the Iroquois nations to have warriors and braves as their chiefs and leaders, and since this custom will not change until after the great white storm has passed, let it be the women, then, of your tribe who in the moon, when the first snow flies, gather to determine by a process of equal vote who are to be your principal chiefs and leaders for the coming season. At this there was an audible rumble of surprise. The concept of voting was not itself new. Fundamentally, that is how chiefs and leaders had always been determined. However, in the past, tribal voting sessions had always been informal affairs, dominated by the most vocal of the men. The women had played indirect roles by helping to form the opinions of their brothers, husbands, and fathers, but it was not often that any but the stronger and more outspoken woman influenced the process directly. To give women not only a role, but the central role in a more formalized and ritualistic process of voting was a new concept. It was welcomed in a spirit of goodwill that soon settled into reverent deliberation. The next few days were spent finalizing the structure of the new League of Iroquois Nations. The Confederacy was divided into 3 bodies: the Mohawk, keepers of the eastern doors, joined with the Seneca, keepers of the western doors, to form one of those bodies. The Oneida joined with the Cayuga to form another. In the middle, both politically and geographically, were the Onondagas, keepers of the central fire. If the 2 tribes of the one body agreed with the 2 tribes of the other on a decision, it was referred to the keepers of the central fire. If the Onondaga did not agree with the proposed action, it was referred back to the 4-tribe council for further deliberation. If the 4 tribes still agree on the matter, it became official policy. On those occasions, when there was a lack of agreement between the Mohawk Seneca side of the council fire and the Oneida Cayuga side of the council fire, the matter was referred to the firekeepers for a final decision. In the end, there was always agreement. During all the deliberations, open debate was encouraged among all 50 of the tribal leaders, 10 of whom were elected to represent the people of each of the 5 founding tribes. However, once a decision became the official policy of the League, the Shishams made it a matter of strict honor to put aside their personal viewpoints and fully support the final decision. This principle of putting aside individual viewpoints and fully supporting the goals of the united body of nations, once they were established, was carefully adhered to throughout the early centuries of the Confederacy's existence. It was a sacred and respected component, the great law of peace. Democracy was practiced among the Iroquois Confederacy for many centuries before it was modified and adapted by the troubled American colonists who had lost patience with Britain's royalty. Though the practice had degenerated somewhat by the 18th century, there remained then, as there does to this day, in the heart of every Iroquois, a strong sense of the danger of leadership by entrenched vertical hierarchy. It is not surprising that a young colonial boy growing up in the forest of Virginia would become familiar with these ideas. Not surprising that Jefferson, Washington, Franklin, and Monroe came to think as they did. Though we were not often incarnate for more than a summer or winter or two in the Americas of colonial times, always we were there. From within every tree, from the blossoms of every flower, from the eyes of birds and children, we watched those colonists. It was we who gave our venison for their table, we who influenced their dreams, and we who, through Jefferson and others, assisted in the firm and absolute rejection of aristocracy on American soil. We maintained a strong and focused presence in the American colonies in those decades and assisted the newly United States in modeling much of their government after the Iroquois Confederacy. We helped them to establish a democracy that required the periodic replacement of leaders, the recognition of certain basic and unalienable rights of its citizens, and a three-way balance of power among its elected representatives. We knew that these former colonists were creating the context for the great melting pot that America was soon to become. We knew that they were creating the political structure that would guide the interaction of strategic representatives of the four races during the last and most crucial centuries before the advent of the new order of the ages. We did not return to our more general pursuits until the new government of the people, by the people, and for the people had been firmly established. The great white roots of peace, as they were perceived by the 5 nations of that now distant day, represented a deep and genuine understanding becoming firmly rooted in the consciousness of a historical people, an understanding that has never left America and never will, though it has become distorted during the recent 5-century storm. We invite all who are able to look back at that day when the flowering tree teachings were reestablished in America. Those of you who can read such things in the records left in the electron spin of the leaves of trees that today grow in those same places. Those of you who can cast your minds back to read the records of this autumnal gathering of Onondaga's shore. You're sensitives, poets. We invite you to explore these times that we of the spirit world can only hint at in the short pages of this volume. What transpired there was in seed form what you are now experiencing as a global spiritual awakening. The winds of consciousness that blow through those at the leading edge of human thought in the late 20th century are the same winds that rippled the leaves upon the trees around Hiawatha as he spoke, the same winds that drew the smoke from the many little fires of that autumn council and brought them together in a single ascending spiral that to this day continues to bless the heavens of human awareness. The account that we offer in the leaves of this book gives but a pencil sketch of the events that occurred. Our words are but symbols, etchings, rough outlines. The reality behind them lives and breathes. You will find it in your heart. It is for you to bring to the world of today. The smoke that rose from those fires that once burned on the hills of upper New York State at the founding of the Iroquois League continues to rise today. It is rising in the awareness of decision-makers in the United Nations, centered not far from where the tree of the Great Peace was first planted. It is rising as new ideas, new concepts, new insights into the nature of peace, rising in states around the world whose boundaries are slowly melting,